Behind the gates of Graceland in 1973, the most important battle of Elvis Presley's life wasn't fought on stage, it was fought in his own heart. This is the story of a king who had everything the world could offer, yet was losing the one thing that mattered most, the love of the woman who knew him before he became a legend. When Priscilla wrote a letter that would change everything, and Elvis faced a choice between his crown and his heart, even the king of rock and roll discovered that some prices are too high to pay. Sometimes the greatest performances happen when the curtain falls, and the real man must face the music of his own soul. The Memphis mansion gleamed under the Tennessee sun, its white columns standing like sentinels guarding secrets within. Priscilla Presley stood at the window of the master bedroom, watching as another Cadillac pulled through the gates of Graceland. Another visitor, another distraction, another piece of the world that wanted to claim her husband. Elvis Aaron Presley, the king of rock and roll, the man who could make thousands scream his name with a single hip thrust, sat on the edge of their bed, his head in his hands. The sequin jumpsuit from last night's show lay crumpled on the floor like a discarded dream. "You're leaving again tomorrow," Priscilla said, her voice barely above a whisper. It wasn't a question. "Vegas calls, baby," Elvis replied without looking up. The curlers got it all arranged. 3 weeks this time. 3 weeks. It felt like a lifetime when measured against the growing distance between them. Later that evening, as Elvis held court with his usual entourage in the living room, Priscilla retreated to her private study. The laughter and music from downstairs felt like echoes from another world. She pulled out a piece of her personal stationery, cream-colored paper with Mrs. Elvis Presley embossed in gold, and began to write out, "My dearest Eldis, I'm writing this letter, knowing you're just downstairs, surrounded by the same faces that always surround you, yet feeling more distant from you than ever. Do you remember when we first met in Germany? I was just 14, starstruck and innocent, and you were this magnificent force of nature, who somehow noticed me in a crowded room, thought you promised me the world then. You said I'd be your queen, if we'd rule this kingdom of music and fame together. And for a while, we did. Those early years at Graceland were magical. Just you, me, and the dreams we painted on late-night conversations under the stars. But somewhere along the way, the dream became a cage. Golden, beautiful, but still a cage. You've become a prisoner of your own legend, and I've become a prisoner of being your wife. The man I fell in love with, the one who sang gospel songs on Sunday mornings and read spiritual books by candlelight. Where did he go? I watch you perform, and I see the fire still burning, but it's different now. It's not just for the music anymore. It's to feed something that's never satisfied, never full. The audience takes pieces of you every night, and there's less and less left for me. I miss you, Eldis. I miss the real you. I miss the man who wasn't afraid to be vulnerable, who didn't need pills to sleep or pills to wake up. I miss the man who saw me as more than just another beautiful thing to possess. I don't know if you'll ever read this. I don't know if you'd understand it if you did. But I needed to tell you that I'm drowning in this life we've built. I'm disappearing, becoming just another fixture in your grand design. I love you. I've always loved you. But love isn't enough when the person you love is becoming a stranger. Forever yours, but maybe not forever here, Priscilla." 3 days later, Elvis found the letter tucked between the pages of one of his books, The Prophet, by Khalil Gibran, one of the few things he still read regularly. His hands trembled as he read Priscilla's words, each line hitting him like a physical blow. He found her in the garden, tending to her roses in the fading afternoon light. She looked up as he approached, the letter clutched in his hand. "You wrote this," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Yes. When? Does it matter?" Elvis sat heavily on the stone bench beside her, suddenly looking every one of his 37 years. The man who commanded stages around the world seemed small and lost in his own backyard. I never meant for it to be like this, Scylla. But it is like this, Elvis. This is what we've become. What do you want me to do? Stop performing? Stop being who I am? Priscilla set down her gardening shears and turned to face him fully. I want you to remember who you were before the world told you who you had to be. I want you to fight for us the way you fight for that spotlight every night. I do fight for us. No, you provide for us. You buy me jewels and cars and beautiful things, but you don't fight for us. When was the last time we had a real conversation? When was the last time you asked me about my dreams, my fears, what I want for my life? Elvis was quiet for a long moment. A mockingbird sang somewhere in the magnolia tree above them, its melody sweet and mournful. I'm scared, Priscilla, he finally admitted. I'm scared that if I stop moving, stop performing, stop being Elvis Presley, there won't be anything left. I'm scared that underneath all of this ... double quotes, he gestured to himself, to the mansion, to everything around them, there's just a poor kid from Tupelo who isn't worth loving. Tears glistened in Priscilla's eyes as she reached for his hand. This was the man she'd fallen in love with. Vulnerable, real, human. That poor kid from Tupelo is exactly who I fell in love with, she whispered. The rest of it, the fame, the money, the legend, that's just noise. But you've let the noise become so loud that you can't hear your own heart anymore. Elvis pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. She smelled like roses and the perfume he'd bought her in Paris, but underneath it all, she still smelled like home. I don't know how to be both, he said. I don't know how to be Elvis Presley and just Elvis. Then maybe you need to choose. They sat in silence as the sun set behind the trees, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Somewhere in the distance, a train whistle blew, lonesome and calling, like so many of the songs Elvis sang. The colonel says I can't take a break. Says the public will forget me. Maybe they will, Priscilla said softly. Maybe some of them will. But the people who matter, the ones who love the real you, I'll wait. Will you wait? She was quiet for so long that Elvis began to fear the answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. I don't know, Elvis. I don't know if I'm strong enough to keep waiting for a man who might never come home. As history would show, some cages are harder to break than others. The king of rock and roll continued to perform, continued to dazzle audiences with his charisma and talent. But the cost grew higher with each passing year. Love, even the deepest love, sometimes isn't enough to compete with the hunger of fame and the weight of legend. But in those quiet moments in the garden, with roses blooming around them and the Memphis sky painted in sunset colors, Elvis Presley wasn't a king at all. He was just a man who loved a woman and was trying to figure out how to love himself enough to save them both. The letter remained tucked in his book, its pages worn from being read and reread in hotel rooms across America. A reminder of what was real in a world built on illusion. A piece of truth in a life constructed from dreams and sequins and the endless, beautiful, terrible roar of the crowd. The king of rock and roll will always live in our hearts. But the man behind the crown, vulnerable, searching, deeply human, that's the Elvis worth remembering.